Hello and welcome. This video was created to help people relax or sleep with this in mind. I only put 3 ads in the entire video. After the first 3 stories, most of the stories in this video are allegedly true and actually happened. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel and like the video. Lastly, thank you for being here when you have so many other choices. Now, let's begin. High schools are often places of vibrant noise, echoes of laughter, hurried footsteps, and the endless hum of chatter. But for Nathan, the sophomore at St. Mark's High, those sounds barely registered. He preferred quiet moments, often finding solace in the library or sitting alone in the courtyard with a sketchbook. His art was his escape, and in a school bustling with cliques and chaos, it set him apart. St. Mark's was old, its brick walls stained with decades of rain and time. The school had stood for over a century, its original structure still intact, though expanded and modernized over the years. Yet, there was one part of the building that remained untouched by renovation: the basement. Nathan had heard stories about it from other students, rumors of a time when the basement was used as a fallout shelter during the Cold War. Some said it housed forgotten supplies, while others whispered about strange noises echoing from below. Most of these tales were dismissed as pranks or exaggerations, but for Nathan, the idea of a hidden part of the school was intriguing. It was a chilly October morning when Nathan's curiosity got the better of him. He had arrived early, as he often did, hoping to finish a sketch before class. But as he sat in the art room, pencil in hand, his mind kept wandering to the basement. The entrance to it was unassuming, a narrow door near the janitor's closet, marked with a faded sign that read, "Authorized personnel only." Nathan had passed it countless times, always dismissing it as just another utility space. But today felt different. There was a faint draft in the hallway, and he noticed a strange smell, like damp earth and something metallic. Nathan hesitated by the door, his heart thudding in his chest. He told himself it was nothing, just an overactive imagination fueled by the stories he'd heard. But then he saw it. The padlock that usually secured the door was missing. He glanced around. The hallway was empty, the usual morning bustle still an hour away. With a shaky hand, he pushed the door open. The hinges creaked, loud and grating in the silence. Beyond the threshold, a set of stone stairs descended into darkness. A single flickering bulb illuminated the top of the staircase, casting long, jittery shadows on the walls. Nathan hesitated, gripping the doorframe. He knew he should turn back. There was no reason to go down there. And yet, something pulled him forward. The air grew colder as he descended, the smell of damp earth intensifying. His footsteps echoed, the sound bouncing off the stone walls. He counted the steps, his breath visible in the dim light. 12 steps down, he reached a landing where the staircase turned sharply to the left. It was there that he saw the first sign that something was wrong. A single shoe lay abandoned on the floor, a small, scuffed sneaker with frayed laces. It looked old, but not old enough to belong to the school's early days. Nathan picked it up, his fingers brushing against something sticky on the sole. When he held it up to the faint light, his stomach churned. It was black. The realization hit him like a punch, and he dropped the shoe, stumbling back against the wall. His heart raced as he stared down at the dark stains spreading across the stone floor. Nathan wanted to run, to bolt back up the stairs and forget he had ever opened that door, but a sound stopped him in his tracks, a faint, rhythmic tapping coming from deeper within the basement. It wasn't loud, but it was steady, like the sound of fingernails drumming on a desk. Nathan's breath hitched. "Hello?" he called, his voice trembling. The tapping stopped. Silence enveloped the space, thick and suffocating. Nathan's pulse thundered in his ears as he strained to hear anything else. Footsteps, breathing, anything to suggest he wasn't alone. but the only sound was the faint hum of the flickering bulb above. He took a step forward, his curiosity warring with the growing dread in his chest. The basement stretched out before him, its walls lined with rusted shelves and forgotten relics. Broken chairs, dusty crates, and stacks of old textbooks were piled haphazardly, as though abandoned in a hurry. Nathan's gaze fell on a large metal door at the far end of the room. It was different from the rest of the basement, newer, sturdier, and sealed with a heavy wheel lock like something out of a submarine. A chill ran down his spine as he approached it, the tapping sound echoing faintly in his mind. The wheel lock was cold under his hand, its surface slick with condensation. He hesitated, every instinct screaming at him to turn back. But as he reached out to twist the lock, he heard it again. A faint whisper, just behind him. "Leave." Nathan spun around, his eyes darting through the shadows. There was no one there. The basement was empty, and yet the whisper had been so clear, so close. He stumbled back toward the stairs, his mind racing. As he reached the landing, he froze. The shoe he had dropped earlier was gone. Nathan couldn't focus for the rest of the day. His mind kept drifting back to the basement, the tapping sound, the whisper, and the missing shoe. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe someone else had been down there, a janitor or another student playing a prank. But deep down he knew better. As he sat in his last class, staring blankly at his sketchpad, a strange sensation crept over him. It felt like being watched, though when he glanced around the room, no one was paying him any attention. "Everything okay, Nathan?" Mrs. Gardner's voice broke through his thoughts. "Yeah," he muttered, closing his sketchpad. But it wasn't okay. The unease clung to him, heavy and oppressive, like a damp fog that refused to lift. When the final bell rang, Nathan lingered near his locker, waiting for the halls to empty. He wasn't sure what he planned to do. Part of him wanted to leave the school and never look back, but another part, the part that always sought answers, pulled him back to the basement. By the time the halls were silent, Nathan found himself standing once again before the basement door. This time it was closed, the missing padlock replaced by a thick chain. He frowned, running his fingers over the cold metal. The janitors must have locked it after discovering it open. But as he turned to leave, something caught his eye. Scratched into the door, just below the chain, were 3 jagged letters, H-E-L. Nathan's breath hitched. He reached out to touch the marks, his fingertips tracing the grooves. The scratches were fresh, the edges splintered and raw. A shiver ran down his spine. Suddenly the faint tapping sound began again, muffled by the heavy door. Nathan stumbled back, his heart hammering in his chest. The sound was rhythmic, deliberate, and closer than before. "Who's in there?" he called, his voice shaking. The tapping stopped. For a moment there was only silence. Then, just as Nathan turned to leave, a low whisper seeped through the door. "Don't forget me." Nathan bolted, his footsteps echoing through the empty halls as he fled the school. He didn't stop running until he was outside, the cool evening air stinging his lungs. That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events in his mind. He had tried to tell himself it was all a prank, but the voice, the desperation in those whispered words, felt too real. After another minute or two, he felt uncertainty build up in his breast as he realized that he was hoping for safety at his own hands. And "don't forget me." What did it mean? As the hours ticked by, Nathan's thoughts grew darker. What if someone really was trapped down there? What if the stories about the basement weren't just rumors? Unable to shake the feeling, he grabbed his phone and began searching for information about the school's history. Most of what he found was mundane: yearbook archives, news about renovations, and articles celebrating the school's centennial. But buried in an old forum post, he stumbled across something strange. The post was dated over 10 years ago, written by someone claiming to be a former student. Stay away from the basement. It's not what they say it is. They tried to seal it off, but it's still there, and so is she. Nathan's stomach churned. The thread was filled with replies, most mocking the original poster, but a few seemed to take it seriously. One user claimed the basement had been used as a storage space for the school's drama department, while another insisted it was a fallout shelter. But one reply stood out. It was short and chilling. "Buried her down there. That's why it's locked." Nathan's hands trembled as he read the words. He didn't want to believe it, but the image of the scratched letters and the missing shoe wouldn't leave his mind. The next day, Nathan decided he needed answers. He waited until lunchtime when the hallways were busy but the staff distracted and slipped into the janitor's office. The room smelled of cleaning supplies and old wood, its walls lined with shelves of tools and equipment. In the corner, Nathan spotted a small key rack. Most of the keys were labeled, but one stood out, a plain silver key with no tag. The truth simmered within each of us. His heart pounded as he grabbed it, slipping it into his pocket before anyone could notice. That evening, long after the school had emptied, Nathan returned. The hallways were eerily quiet, the fluorescent lights casting long shadows on the tiled floor. He hesitated outside the basement door, the key heavy in his hand. The chain was still in place, but Nathan noticed something odd. The scratches had changed. The letters now read H-E-L-P. He swallowed hard, sliding the key into the lock. It turned with a soft click, and the chain fell away. As he opened the door, the tapping sound returned, louder this time. Nathan descended the stairs, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The basement felt colder than before, the air thick and heavy. When he reached the bottom, he froze. The shoe was back, placed neatly in the center of the floor. Next to it was a crumpled piece of paper. Nathan's hands shook as he unfolded it. The paper was yellowed with age, the handwriting faint but legible. "Find me before it's too late." Nathan's pulse raced as he stared at the note in his trembling hands. The words blurred and twisted in his mind, merging with the faint whispers that seemed to linger in the basement air. "Find me before it's too late." Too late for what? The flashlight beam wavered as Nathan turned in a slow circle, his senses on high alert. The basement was deathly quiet, save for the occasional creak of the old building above him. The shoe lay undisturbed on the cold concrete floor, and for a moment, Nathan wondered if he was losing his grip on reality. But the note felt real. Its rough texture and the faint scent of mildew clung to his fingertips. Someone, or something, had left it for him. He steeled himself and pressed forward, deeper into the basement. The shadows seemed to ripple and stretch as he moved, his flashlight revealing walls lined with rusted pipes and cobwebs. Then he saw it. At the far end of the basement, partially obscured by a stack of dusty crates, was a door. It was smaller than the main entrance, its surface scarred with deep scratches. The hinges were rusted, and the knob was coated in years of grime. Nathan hesitated, his guts screaming at him to turn back, but the same curiosity that had driven him to return to the basement now compelled him to approach the door. As he reached for the knob, a sudden chill swept through the air, biting through his jacket and sending a shiver down his spine. He froze, half expecting the door to burst open on its own. Instead, there was only silence. Swallowing his fear, Nathan twisted the knob. It resisted at first, but with a sharp creak the door swung open. What lay beyond made his breath catch. The room was unlike the rest of the basement. While the outer area was plain and utilitarian, this space felt wrong. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, its once bright floral pattern now faded and stained. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, swaying gently despite the absence of any breeze. The floor was littered with debris, broken furniture, yellowed papers and shards of glass. But what drew Nathan's attention was the desk in the center of the room. It was old, its surface marred with deep gouges. On top of it lay an assortment of objects, a cracked mirror, a rusted pair of scissors, and a notebook bound in worn leather. Nathan approached cautiously, his footsteps crunching against the scattered debris. The notebook seemed out of place, its cover pristine compared to the decay surrounding it. He sighed. He picked it up, his fingers brushing against the smooth leather. The air seemed to grow heavier as he opened it, the pages brittle beneath his touch. The handwriting inside was jagged and frantic, the words scrawled in dark ink that bled through the thin paper. She won't let me leave. Every time I try, she pulls me back. I can hear her voice in the walls, in my head. I thought sealing the door would stop her, but it only made her angrier. Nathan's heart pounded as he flipped through the pages. The entries grew more incoherent, the writer's desperation bleeding through the words. And she watches me in the dark. I see her eyes even when I close mine. She knows I'm afraid. She feeds on it. At the bottom of the final page, a single word was written over and over, the ink pressed so hard it tore the paper in places. Run. Nathan's hands shook as he closed the notebook, the air around him feeling thick and suffocating. He wanted to leave, to bolt back up the stairs and never look back, but something stopped him. It was faint at first, a soft rustling that seemed to come from the walls. Then came the whisper, a low, mournful voice that sent chills racing down his spine. The devils. Well, did you come back? Nathan spun around, his flashlight darting across the room. The shadows seemed to shift and dance, mocking his panic. Who's there? He demanded, his voice cracking. The whisper came again, closer this time. You shouldn't be here. The bulb above him flickered, casting the room in brief bursts of light and shadow. In the flashes, Nathan thought he saw movement, a figure standing just at the edge of the light. Leave me alone, he shouted, backing toward the door. The bulb went out completely, plunging the room into darkness. Nathan's flashlight sputtered and died, leaving him blind. He fumbled with it, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. Then, from the darkness, came the voice again, soft and sorrowful. Exercising in the room of my mind's eye. Don't forget me. Something brushed against his arm, cold, clammy, and unmistakably real. Nathan screamed, stumbling backward. His flashlight flickered back to life, its beam cutting through the darkness. The room was empty. Nathan didn't stop running until he was back outside, the cool night air stinging his lungs. He leaned against the side of the school, his heart racing as he tried to make sense of what had just happened. The notebook was still clutched in his hand, its leather cover damp with sweat. He stared at it. The final word burned into his mind. Run. Already dreading his next meeting, he pulled the notebook from his pocket and folded it flat against his chest. But even as he stood there, safe beneath the open sky, he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't alone. Somewhere in the darkness, he felt her watching. Nathan sat in his room, the notebook open on his desk. He'd spent hours poring over its pages, searching for any clue that could explain what he had experienced. The words seemed to pulse with a life of their own, their meaning shifting and twisting in his mind the longer he stared at them. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the window panes. It was late, but sleep was the last thing on Nathan's mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the room, the flickering light, and the shadow that seemed to watch him from the darkness. He turned to the last page again, his fingers tracing the jagged letters. Run. Who had written this? And who was the she they were so desperate to escape from? The faint hum of his laptop brought him back to the present. He had started searching for anything about the school's basement, hoping to uncover some forgotten piece of history. Most of what he found was mundane: blueprints, old news articles, and a few grainy photos of the school's construction. But then he stumbled across something strange. The article was buried deep in an online archive, its title faded and partially obscured. Local high school janitor, missing after incident in basement. Exercise. Nathan clicked on it, his heart racing. The article was dated 20 years earlier and described the sudden disappearance of a man named Walter Griggs. Walter was last seen entering the basement late one evening to investigate strange noises reported by students. His belongings were found near a small storage room, but no trace of him was ever recovered. Nathan's blood ran cold as he read the last line. Witnesses claimed they heard screams coming from the basement that night, but when police arrived, the area was empty. Some believe the basement is cursed, but officials have dismissed these claims as baseless rumors. Erased. The word lingered in Nathan's mind as he stared at the screen. Was this the same room he had found? Was Walter Griggs the one who wrote the notebook? He glanced at the desk, where the notebook sat like a dark omen. The air in the room felt heavier now, as if the shadows themselves were pressing closer. A sharp knock at his bedroom door made him jump. "Nathan?" his mother called from the other side. "You okay in there?" He took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "Yeah, Mom. Just working on something." "Well, don't stay up too late," she said. "You've got school tomorrow." School. The thought sent a shiver down his spine. The idea of stepping foot in that building again, knowing what he knew now, filled him with dread. But he didn't have a choice. The next morning, Nathan walked through the school's crowded hallways, his senses on high alert. Every creak of the floor, every muffled laugh, and every distant voice felt like a threat. He kept his head down, avoiding eye contact with his classmates. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. As he passed by the stairwell leading to the basement, he felt an almost magnetic pull. His feet slowed, his gaze drawn to the darkened doorway at the end of the hall. "Hey, Nathan." The voice startled him, and he turned to see Mia jogging toward him. She was one of the few people who had tried to talk to him since he'd transferred to the school. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, her tone light but concerned. Nathan forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." Mia tilted her head, studying him. "You've been acting weird lately. Did something happen?" He hesitated, debating whether to tell her, but the words came tumbling out before he could stop them. "I went into the basement." Her expression changed instantly, the color draining from her face. "Why would you do that?" I don't know. I heard something and I wanted to check it out," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But there's something down there, Mia. Something wrong." Mia glanced around nervously before grabbing his arm and pulling him into an empty classroom. "You shouldn't have gone down there," she said, her voice low and urgent. "Nobody goes into the basement. Not since—" She trailed off, her eyes darting to the door as if expecting someone or something to burst in. "Since what?" Nathan pressed. Mia hesitated, her fingers twisting nervously in her lap. "There's this story about a girl who disappeared a long time ago. They say she was trapped in the basement, but no one ever found her body. People think her spirit's still down there, looking for a way out." Nathan's stomach turned. "You think it's true?" Mia nodded slowly. "I don't know what else it could be. People hear things down there, whispers, footsteps, and anyone who spends too much time in the basement, they change. They get sick or they disappear. Like Mr. Griggs." Nathan's breath caught. "Walter Griggs? The janitor? You've heard about him?" Mia asked, her eyes widening. "An article," he said, "and I think I found his notebook." Mia stared at him, her expression a mix of fear and disbelief. You need to get rid of it. Whatever's in that notebook, it's connected to her, and the longer you keep it, the worse it's going to get. Nathan thought of the whispers, the shadow in the room, and the cold touch on his arm. He didn't want to believe her, but deep down, he knew she was right. But how could he get rid of it? And would it even let him? That night, Nathan sat at his desk, the notebook in front of him. He had tried to throw it away earlier, but every time he picked it up, an overwhelming sense of dread stopped him. It was as if the notebook didn't want to be discarded. The whispers began again, soft and distant at first, but growing louder with each passing moment. "Don't forget me." Nathan slammed the notebook shut, his heart pounding. He needed answers, and he knew where to find them. The next day, Nathan arrived at school with a singular focus, to confront the basement and find out the truth. The notebook sat heavy in his backpack, as if its weight were more than physical. He sat at his desk and slowly folded the plastic strings together until they formed a place on the page of the middle section to access soundspace. Strips of paper were attached to the plastic strings too, so Mia had tried to stop him before class. She'd begged him not to go back, her voice trembling with fear. "You don't understand, Nathan. That place, it doesn't just scare people, it changes them." But he couldn't ignore the pull. The whispers had followed him all night, seeping into his dreams and dragging him back to the dark, flickering room. The final bell rang and the halls began to empty. Nathan waited, watching as students filtered out of the building. He knew he'd have to move quickly. Once the janitor locked up, his chance would be gone. "Hey!" The stairwell leading to the basement loomed before him, a gaping mouth swallowing the light. His footsteps echoed as he descended, each step colder than the last. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and mildew. When he reached the bottom, he hesitated. The hallway stretched out before him, shrouded in shadow. At the far end, the door to the storage room stood ajar, its hinges creaking faintly, as if beckoning him closer. Nathan gripped the notebook tightly, his knuckles white. He forced himself to move, each step dragging him closer to the room that had haunted his thoughts. Inside, the room was just as he remembered it. The single bulb flickered overhead, casting jagged shadows across the walls. The air was icy, and the faint sound of whispers curled around him like smoke. He placed the notebook on the desk and took a step back, his breath visible in the frigid air. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice trembling. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices overlapping and blending into an incomprehensible murmur. A final whisper lost in the noise, as if the words were being spoken right out loud by some collective mind struggling to make sense of the chaos. Then, one voice broke through. "Help me." Nathan froze. The voice was faint, almost childlike, and it seemed to come from all around him. "Who are you?" he asked. The light flickered violently, plunging the room into near darkness. When it steadied, Nathan saw something that made his blood run cold. The shadow. It stood in the corner, its form barely distinguishable from the darkness around it. Two pinpoints of light gleamed where its eyes should have been, watching him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. "Well, you hear," Nathan whispered, his voice barely audible. The shadow didn't move, but the air around him grew colder. The whispers returned, louder this time, forming words that made his heart pound. "He's trapped. Help her." Nathan's mind raced. Was this the girl Mia had mentioned? The one who had disappeared years ago? "How?" he asked, his voice shaking. The shadow raised an arm, pointing toward the far wall. Nathan turned, his gaze falling on the bricks. They looked old and uneven, as if they had been hastily patched together. He approached the wall, his fingers brushing against the cold surface. A chill ran through him as he noticed something strange. One of the bricks was loose. With trembling hands, he prized it free, revealing a small, dark cavity. Inside was a photograph. The picture was old, its edges yellowed with age. It showed a group of students standing in front of the school, their smiles frozen in time. But one face stood out, a girl with dark hair and piercing eyes, her expression somber and out of place. On the back of the photograph, scrawled in faded ink, were the words, Eleanor, 1982. Nathan's breath caught. Eleanor. Was this the girl who had disappeared? He turned back to the shadow, but it was gone. The room was empty, the whispers silenced. The light above him flickered once, twice, and then went out, plunging the room into darkness. Panic set in as Nathan fumbled for his phone, its screen casting a dim glow. He could feel the weight of the room pressing down on him, the cold seeping into his bones. And then he heard it. A soft, raspy breathing. It was close. Too close. Nathan turned, his phone's light cutting through the darkness. For a moment he saw nothing. But then the light landed on a face. Pale, gaunt, and hollow-eyed, it stared at him from the corner of the room. Its mouth moved soundlessly, as if trying to speak. Nathan stumbled back, his heart racing. The figure stepped closer, its movements slow and deliberate. Eleanor, he whispered. The figure stopped, its head tilting as if considering his words. And then it screamed. The sound was deafening, a mix of anguish and rage that made Nathan's ears ring. He dropped his phone, the light spinning wildly as it hit the ground. In the chaos, he grabbed the notebook and ran, his footsteps echoing through the dark hallway. He didn't stop until he was outside, the cold night air stinging his lungs. That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. The photograph sat on his desk, a silent reminder of what he had seen. Who was Eleanor, and what had happened to her? He knew he couldn't stop now. The shadow, the whispers, the photograph. They were all pieces of a puzzle, and he was determined to solve it. Nathan couldn't shake the image of Eleanor's face, the hollow eyes, the silent scream. It clung to his thoughts like a shadow. The photograph sat on his desk, the name Eleanor etched into his mind. Sleep evaded him that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face staring back at him, a haunting reminder of the secrets buried beneath the school. By morning, his resolve had hardened. If the whispers wanted him to uncover the truth, he would. He didn't have a choice anymore. It was as if the basement had wrapped its icy fingers around him, pulling him deeper into its grip. At school, Mia confronted him again. Her expression was a mixture of anger and fear. "You went back, didn't you?" she accused. Nathan nodded, holding up the photograph. "Do you know who this is?" Mia's eyes widened as she took the picture, her face going pale. "Where did you find this?" she whispered. "In the basement," Nathan replied. "Behind the bricks in the storage room." Mia stared at the photograph, her hands trembling. "This is Eleanor Carter. She was a senior here in the early 80s. Everyone said she just vanished. No one knew what happened to her." Nathan's mind raced. Why would her picture be hidden down there, and why is she still there? Mia looked up at him, her fear palpable. "Because she didn't just disappear, Nathan. She died, and I think she's still trapped." Nathan spent the rest of the day digging through old yearbooks and school records in the library. He found Eleanor's name listed in the 1982 yearbook, but there was little else. No club memberships, no achievements, no senior portrait. It was as if she had been erased from history. But then he stumbled upon an article from the local newspaper, dated May 1982. "High school student missing, Eleanor Carter last seen on school grounds." The article described how Eleanor had stayed late after school to help a teacher, but never made it home. A search of the school had turned up nothing, and her case remained unsolved. Nathan's heart sank as he read the final lines. Authorities believe Eleanor may have run away, though friends insist she would never leave without saying goodbye. The investigation is ongoing. That evening, Nathan returned to the basement, Mia reluctantly by his side. "Don't like this," she muttered as they descended the stairs. "Neither do I," Nathan admitted, "but I can't stop now." The storage room was colder than before, the air heavy with an oppressive silence. The light bulb flickered weakly, casting erratic shadows on the walls. Nathan pulled the notebook from his bag and flipped through its pages, searching for anything he might have missed. Mia pointed to a line scrawled near the bottom of one page. "The walls remember. The truth is buried where the light fades." Nathan glanced at the far corner of the room, where the shadows seemed unnaturally dense. "We need to check the walls," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Using a flashlight, Nathan examined the bricks, running his fingers along the rough surface. Mia stayed close, her unease evident. After several minutes, he found it, a faint crack running along the base of the wall, almost imperceptible in the dim light. "Is that door?" "This has to be it," Nathan said, his voice tinged with both excitement and dread. He pried at the bricks, the mortar crumbling easily under his hands. Mia helped, her fear momentarily giving way to determination. Behind the wall was a small, dark space, barely large enough for a person. The air that seeped out was damp and foul, carrying a faint metallic tang. Nathan reached inside, his fingers brushing against something cold and hard. He pulled it out, a rusted locket, its chain tangled and broken. He opened it carefully. Inside was a tiny photograph of Eleanor, smiling faintly. But beneath the locket was something far more chilling. Mia gasped, stumbling back. "Oh my God, is that—" "It's human," Nathan said, his voice shaking. The whispers returned, louder this time, echoing through the room like a chorus of voices. "Find me. Set me free." Nathan dropped the bone, his heart pounding. "Eleanor. She's buried here." Richard Knightley sighed. After a biodrama, his training in therapy was letting him loose with the transformation work. "Eleanor, she's buried here." Mia's face was ashen. "We need to tell someone. The police—" "No," Nathan interrupted. "They'll seal this place off, and we'll never find out the truth. We have to do this ourselves." "Oh, no." The rest of the night was a blur. Nathan and Mia worked tirelessly, tearing away at the wall until the cavity was fully exposed. Inside, they found more bones, each one brittle and yellowed with age. The sight was horrifying, but Nathan couldn't stop. As they unearthed the remains, the whispers grew deafening, filling the room with an almost unbearable noise. And then, silence. The air grew still, and the oppressive weight that had filled the room seemed to lift. Nathan turned to Mia, his hands trembling. "Do you feel that?" Mia nodded, her eyes wide. "It's like... she's gone." But as they stepped back from the wall, the light bulb shattered, plunging the room into darkness. In the pitch black, a single voice rang out, clear and cold. "You shouldn't have done that." Nathan and Mia froze in the pitch-black basement. The voice had been unmistakable, low, deliberate, and filled with menace. "Who's there?" Nathan called out, his voice quivering. No response. Mia fumbled for her phone, the dim light of its screen casting an eerie glow across her face. She quickly turned on the flashlight, sweeping it across the room. There was nothing. But the air had changed again, heavy, electric, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. "We need to leave," Mia whispered, gripping Nathan's arm. He nodded, but as they turned toward the stairs, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. The flashlight flickered, and the temperature dropped sharply. Their breath fogged the air as the whispers returned, no longer distant but surrounding them, weaving through the dark like invisible tendrils. Nathan gripped the rusted locket tightly. "Eleanor," he called out, his voice trembling. "Is this what you wanted? We found you. We know what happened." His hand clutched at his chest. "How can you say that?" she asked. Nathan gripped the locket tighter. The whisperers stopped. For a moment the room was deathly silent. Then, from the corner of the room, a figure began to emerge. It wasn't solid. It was a shadow, darker than the darkness around it, taking shape as it moved closer. The outline of a girl became visible, her form flickering like a flame caught in the wind. Her face was pale and hollow, her eyes sunk in pits of darkness. She raised a trembling hand, pointing at Nathan. "You didn't set me free," the voice rasped, echoing as though it came from every corner of the room. Nathan's mind raced. "What do you mean? We found your bones. We uncovered the truth." The figure stepped closer, her movements jerky and unnatural. "They're still here," she hissed. "The ones who did this, the ones who kept me here." Mia clutched Nathan's arm tighter. What does she mean? Who's still here? Before Nathan could respond, the room shifted. The walls seemed to warp and bend, the brick and mortar dissolving into shadows. With a gasp of horror, the red carpet became a sliver of the heavens. They were no longer in the basement. Nathan and Mia found themselves standing in what appeared to be the same room, but it was different. Brighter, cleaner. The air was warm, and the faint hum of fluorescent lights filled the space. The basement had transformed into a version of itself from decades ago. "What's happening?" Mia whispered, her voice barely audible. Before Nathan could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway. A door creaked open, and a man stepped into view. He was tall and thin, dressed in a janitor's uniform. His face was sharp, his eyes cold and calculating. He carried a large bag over one shoulder, its contents heavy and awkwardly shaped. Nathan and Mia watched in horrified silence as the man approached the corner of the room. He set the bag down and began pulling bricks from the wall, creating the cavity they had discovered earlier. Mia's hand flew to her mouth. "My God, he's the one who—" "Shh," Nathan hissed, though he doubted the man could see or hear them. The janitor worked quickly, pulling items from the bag, bones wrapped in cloth, stained with age. He placed them into the cavity with mechanical precision, his face devoid of emotion. As he finished, he stood back and muttered to himself, his voice low and gravelly. "No one will ever find her. No one will ever know." He began sealing the wall, brick by brick. The scene shifted again, and Nathan and Mia were thrust into darkness. When the light returned, they were in the school hallway, staring through the glass of the principal's office. Inside, a man in a suit sat at a desk, speaking in hushed tones to a woman standing before him. "She's gone," the principal said, his voice steady but cold. "It's better this way. The investigation ends here." The woman, another teacher, Nathan guessed, looked uneasy. "And what about her parents? They'll never stop looking." "They will have to," the principal replied. "If they find out what happened, if they find out what we did." "The school is finished." The teacher hesitated, then nodded. "For the good of the school." The shadows swirled again, and Nathan and Mia were back in the basement, gasping for breath. Eleanor's ghostly figure hovered before them, her form flickering. "We covered it up," Nathan said, piecing it together. "The janitor, the principal. They all knew what happened, and they hid it. They let you rot down here." The ghost nodded, her hollow eyes locking onto Nathan's. "They are still here. Their sins bind me to this place." Nathan frowned. "Still here? What do you mean?" "Their legacy," Eleanor rasped. "The lies they built, The power they kept. It keeps me trapped. Mitchell slowly nodded. Mia looked at Nathan, her face pale. What does she want us to do? Nathan turned to Eleanor. How do we set you free? The ghost pointed to the far wall where the bricks seemed to shimmer. Destroy it, she said. Expose the truth. Nathan and Mia worked quickly, smashing at the wall with anything they could find. The bricks crumbled under their efforts, revealing another hidden space behind it. Inside was a collection of old documents, photographs, and tapes, all evidence of the cover-up. Mia picked up a folder, her hands shaking as she read its contents. They knew everything. They paid people off, silenced witnesses. Nathan found a tape recorder and hit play. The principal's voice crackled to life, confessing to the cover-up in chilling detail. This is it, Nathan said, turning to Eleanor. This will expose them. This will set you free. The ghost's form flickered, a faint smile crossing her lips. But as they gathered the evidence, the whispers returned, louder and angrier than before. The basement began to shake, the walls cracking and groaning as if the building itself was alive. We have to go, Mia screamed. Nathan grabbed the documents and the locket, shoving them into his bag. As they raced toward the stairs, the last thing they saw was Eleanor, her figure dissolving into light. Her voice echoed one final time. Thank you. Nathan and Mia burst out of the basement, gasping for air as the door slammed shut behind them. The sound reverberated through the empty hallways of the school, echoing like a warning. We need to get out of here, Mia panted, clutching the bag of evidence tightly against her chest. Nathan nodded, but as they started down the hallway, the fluorescent lights above them began to flicker erratically. The hum of electricity grew louder, almost deafening, before the lights popped, plunging the school into darkness. Exercise. A low groan filled the air, like the building itself was alive, its foundations trembling with an unseen fury. What's happening? Mia whispered, her voice trembling. Nathan looked around, his flashlight beam darting across the empty halls. I think the school doesn't want us to leave. As if on cue, the lockers lining the hallway began to rattle violently. Their metal doors banged open and shut in unison, the cacophony echoing around them. From the far end of the corridor, a shadow began to take form. It wasn't Eleanor this time. This shadow was larger, more menacing, its shape-shifting and twisting as it moved toward them. It reached out to grasp Eleanor and Run! Nathan shouted, grabbing Mia's hand. They sprinted down the hallway, their footsteps echoing against the tiled floor. The shadow followed, its presence suffocating, its tendrils stretching out to grasp at them. They rounded a corner and ducked into a classroom, slamming the door shut behind them. Nathan pushed a desk against the door as Mia frantically searched for another way out. Over here, she called, pointing to a window at the back of the room. Nathan joined her, and together they prized the window open. The cool night air rushed in, a stark contrast to the oppressive heat that had filled the school. Mia climbed out first, landing awkwardly on the grass below. Nathan followed, but as he turned to close the window, he saw the shadow staring at him from the doorway of the classroom. Its form was vaguely human, but its eyes were two glowing orbs of crimson. It raised an arm, and the glass of the window shattered, sending shards flying toward Nathan. Go! Mia screamed, pulling him away from the building. They ran across the schoolyard, the shadow looming behind them. It didn't move like a person. It glided, its form expanding and contracting as it chased them. Nathan and Mia reached the edge of the property where a chain-link fence blocked their path. Boost me up! Mia shouted. Nathan cupped his hands, hoisting her over the fence. She landed on the other side and turned to help him, but the shadow was closing in fast. Hurry! She cried. Nathan scrambled up the fence, his hands slipping on the cold metal. As he reached the top, the shadow surged forward, its tendrils wrapping around his ankle. Nathan screamed as the cold seeped into his skin, pulling him back toward the school. Mia grabbed his arm, pulling with all her strength. "You're not taking him," she yelled, tears streaming down her face. With one final effort, Nathan kicked free of the shadow's grasp and tumbled over the fence, landing hard on the ground. The shadow stopped at the edge of the property, its glowing eyes watching them as they staggered to their feet. The air around it seemed to shimmer, and for a moment, Nathan thought he could see faces in the darkness. Angry, vengeful faces, trapped within the entity. "We're not safe yet," Nathan said, his voice hoarse. They ran through the empty streets, the bag of evidence bouncing against Nathan's back with every step. The neighborhood was eerily quiet, the houses dark and lifeless. "We need to find someone," Mia said, glancing over her shoulder. "The police, the news, anyone who can help us." Nathan nodded, but his mind was racing. The shadow had stopped at the edge of the school property, but that didn't mean it was gone. As they turned a corner, they spotted the glow of a 24-hour gas station up ahead. "There!" Mia said, grabbing Nathan's arm and pulling him toward the light. The gas station was empty except for the clerk, a young man with headphones in, nodding along to the beat of his music. Mia banged on the counter, startling him. "Hey, we need help," she said, her voice urgent. The clerk pulled out one of his earbuds, eyeing them warily. "What's going on?" Nathan pulled the locket and a stack of documents from the bag, spreading them across the counter. "We found this in the basement of our school. It's evidence, proof that a girl named Eleanor was murdered, and the school covered it up. And we hadn't done anything to prevent the attack from happening, and this was an early warning system that anyone could have used." Nathan pulled the locket out of the bag and slipped. The clerk frowned, looking down at the faded papers and photos. "Okay, and you brought this to me because—" "We need to call someone," Mia said. "The police, the media, someone who can expose this." The clerk nodded slowly, reaching for the phone behind the counter. But before he could dial, the lights in the gas station began to flicker. Nathan and Mia exchanged a panicked glance as the hum of electricity grew louder. The shadow was here. "Get away from the windows," Nathan shouted, grabbing the clerk and pulling him toward the back of the store. The shadow seeped under the door, its tendrils spreading across the floor like spilled ink. "What the hell is that?" the clerk yelled, his face pale. "No time to explain," Mia said, shoving him into the stockroom. They barricaded the door with crates and shelves, but the shadow was relentless. Its tendrils slipped through the cracks, stretching toward them. Nathan pulled out the locket, holding it up like a shield. "Eleanor, if you can hear me, we need your help." The locket grew warm in his hand, and a faint glow began to emanate from it. The shadow recoiled slightly, its tendrils retreating. Nathan's heart raced. It's working. But the shadow wasn't finished. It gathered itself, forming into a towering figure that loomed over them. The air grew thick, making it hard to breathe. Nathan could feel the weight of the entity's hatred, its fury at being challenged. He gripped the locket tighter, focusing on Eleanor's face in his mind. "You wanted us to expose the truth. We're trying, but we need you to stop this thing." The glow from the locket intensified, filling the room with light. The shadow let out a deafening roar, its form writhing and twisting as if in pain. Mia grabbed Nathan's arm. "Keep going, don't stop." Nathan closed his eyes, pouring every ounce of his will into the locket. "Eleanor, this is your chance. Fight back." The shadow surged forward one last time, but the light from the locket exploded outward, consuming it in a blinding flash. When the light faded, the shadow was gone. The gas station was silent, the air clear once more. Nathan and Mia collapsed to the floor, exhausted but alive. Nathan and Mia sat on the cold tile floor of the gas station stockroom, their breathing ragged. The clerk peered out from behind a stack of crates, his face pale. "What the hell was that?" he asked, his voice trembling. Nathan looked at the locket in his hand. Its glow had faded, but it still felt warm. It's a long story, but the short version, that thing doesn't want us exposing the truth. Mia pushed herself to her feet, clutching the edge of a shelf for support. We can't stop now. If we back down, all of this, Eleanor's death, everything we've been through, it'll be for nothing. The clerk hesitated, then slowly nodded. All right. What do you need me to do? Call the police, Mia said, and tell them to meet us here. We have the evidence they need to open an investigation. Nathan added, and call a news station. The more people who know, the harder it'll be for anyone to cover this up. The clerk swallowed hard but reached for the phone. As he dialed, Nathan and Mia began sorting through the bag, organizing the documents and photographs into a coherent story. Minutes later, the sound of sirens filled the air. Red and blue lights illuminated the gas station parking lot as police cars pulled up, their doors opening to reveal uniformed officers. The cars. Nathan and Mia stepped outside, their hands raised to show they weren't a threat. One of the officers, a tall man with a stern expression, approached them. We got a call about some kind of evidence. You two want to explain what's going on? Nathan handed over the locket and a folder of documents. This is proof that a girl named Eleanor was murdered at our school decades ago. The school covered it up, and now something is haunting it. The officer frowned, flipping through the papers. His eyes widened as he came across a faded photograph of Eleanor, her eyes bright with life. And you're saying this haunting is real? Mia stepped forward. We've seen it. We've been attacked by it. Whatever's happening, it's tied to the school and to Eleanor's death. The officer exchanged a glance with his partner before turning back to them. All right. We'll need to take you both down to the station to give a full statement, and we'll need to verify all of this. Nathan nodded. Fine, but you need to act fast. The longer this stays hidden, the more people are in danger. As the officers began loading the evidence into their squad car, a news van pulled into the parking lot. A reporter and her cameraman jumped out, their equipment already rolling. Are you the ones who found the evidence? The reporter asked, her microphone pointed at Nathan and Mia. Mia hesitated, but Nathan stepped forward. Yes, we found proof of a murder that was covered up at our school. We believe the victim's spirit has been trying to expose the truth for years. The reporter's eyes lit up with excitement. This is incredible. Can you tell us more? Nathan glanced at Mia, who nodded. Together they recounted everything. Eleanor's story, the hidden basement, the shadowy entity that had tried to stop them. The cameraman captured it all, his lens focused on the locket in Nathan's hand. As they spoke, a crowd began to gather. Passers-by stopped to listen, their faces a mix of curiosity and disbelief. The reporter ended the segment with a solemn promise. This story is far from over. We'll continue to follow it as new details emerge. For now, the question remains, how far will people go to bury the truth? And what happens when it refuses to stay buried? Nathan and Mia were taken to the police station, where they spent hours giving their statements and answering questions. By the time they were released, the first news reports were already airing. The story had gone viral, spreading across social media like wildfire. The school's administration issued a brief statement denying any wrongdoing, but the mounting evidence made their position increasingly untenable. That night, Nathan and Mia sat on the roof of Mia's house, staring up at the stars. As the stars started to fade from the sky, and the sky darkened. We did it, Mia said softly. We finally told her story. Nathan nodded, the locket still clutched in his hand. But it's not over. The school's still standing, and whatever's haunting it, it's still out there. Mia leaned her head against his shoulder. We'll deal with it. Together. As they sat in silence, a faint glow emanated from the locket. It wasn't ominous this time. It was warm, almost comforting. Nathan smiled. Thank you, Eleanor. The following morning, Nathan and Mia found themselves back at the school. It felt different now, like the building had become more aware of their presence. The air was heavier, thick with a lingering sense of unease. They had promised Eleanor that they would uncover the truth, but there was still a feeling that something crucial was missing, something they hadn't fully uncovered. As they returned to the school for class, they both felt the need to discuss something important, something they hadn't fully uncovered. The press had only scratched the surface. The local authorities had launched an investigation into the cover-up, but the haunting, whatever it was, remained unresolved. Nathan and Mia had spent the last few hours discussing their next steps, and it had become clear that they needed to go back to where it all began. The basement. "Do you think it'll be different now?" Mia asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty as she stood beside Nathan in front of the school. "Now that the truth is out?" Nathan hesitated. "I don't know, but we can't leave until we know for sure that Eleanor's story is completely told." She turned to Allison again. The heavy doors of the school loomed before them, their presence both familiar and intimidating. It was as though the building itself was holding its breath, waiting for them to step inside. The two of them made their way through the halls, each step echoing in the empty corridors. The school felt abandoned in a way, despite the occasional flicker of light overhead. They passed by the classrooms, their windows cracked and covered in dust, as if the school had been left in a hurry. It wasn't just a place of learning anymore. It was a place of secrets, of memories that refused to stay hidden. Finally, they reached the door that led to the basement. It had been locked the last time they were here, but now it was ajar, as though inviting them in. Nathan glanced at Mia. "Are you ready for this?" She nodded, her eyes steely with determination. "We don't have a choice. We finish what we started." They stepped into the basement, the musty air hitting them like a wave. The stairs creaked under their feet as they descended into the darkness. Nathan's heart raced, but he knew there was no turning back now. At the bottom of the stairs they found the door to the hidden room. It was no longer sealed, but the air around it felt wrong. The hairs on the back of Nathan's neck stood on end as he reached for the door handle. As soon as he touched it, the door swung open on its own, revealing the room within. It was small, cramped, and the walls were covered in strange symbols, drawn hastily with something that looked like dried blood. In the center of the room stood an old wooden chair, one that looked as though it had been used for something far darker than just sitting. The room was eerily silent, save for the sound of their breathing. Nathan stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room. "This is it," he murmured. "This is where they did it." It was not what Nathan was expecting. Mia moved forward, her hand grazing the chair's back. She winced as if something sharp had pricked her. Nathan turned toward the wall, his eyes widening when he saw something in the corner. A faded, yellowed photograph. He picked it up, his hands trembling as he examined it. It was Eleanor, standing with a group of other students, all smiling. But something was off about the photo. Eleanor's face was blurred, her expression hollow. Mia approached him, her voice a whisper. "What is it?" Nathan didn't answer at first. His mind raced as he looked at the photograph. Something in his gut told him this was the key, the missing piece they had been searching for. As if on cue, a cold breeze swept through the room, extinguishing the candle they had lit. The temperature dropped sharply, and a soft, eerie whisper filled the air, so faint that Nathan could barely make it out. Leave this place," Halad said. Nathan's pulse quickened. He knew it wasn't just the wind. The spirit of Eleanor was here, trapped in this room, and she wasn't ready to move on. "We need to find out who did this," Nathan said, his voice steady despite the rising fear in his chest. "We need to find out what they were hiding." Suddenly, the photograph in Nathan's hand began to shake. He gasped as it seemed to come to life, the image shifting. the faces of the other students in the photo contorting into something unrecognizable. A shadow moved across the room and the temperature plummeted further. Mia grabbed Nathan's arm, her grip tight. "It's here," she whispered. The door slammed shut behind them with a deafening bang, and the room was plunged into darkness. The air became thick, suffocating as the whisper grew louder, more frantic. "Leave, now, or it will never end." Nathan's heart hammered in his chest as he turned to Mia. "We have to confront it. We have to make it stop." He stepped toward the chair in the center of the room, the source of the energy that had bound Eleanor's spirit here. As he touched it, a searing pain shot through his hand, and he jerked back, his eyes widening in horror. The chair's backrest cracked open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, a small, dusty box lay nestled. Nathan reached for it, his hands trembling. He opened the box, revealing a collection of old papers, letters, and a final faded document. The words on the paper were barely legible, but Nathan could make out one name: Dr. Howard Westmore. It was the name of the school's principal from decades ago, the one who had covered up Eleanor's death, the one who had silenced her. A deep, guttural growl echoed through the room, and the temperature plummeted even further. The whisper grew into a scream, and Nathan could feel the presence of the entity, of Eleanor, closing in around them. But this time, they had the truth, and they weren't backing down. Nathan clutched the document tightly. "We know what you did," he shouted into the darkness. "We know the truth, and we're not leaving until you let her go." The room trembled, the walls groaning as if the very building itself was fighting to keep its secret. The air grew heavy, and for a moment it felt like the floor was going to give way beneath them. Then, in an instant, everything stopped. The whispering ceased, the temperature returned to normal, the shadows faded, and the oppressive weight lifted. Nathan and Mia stood in the now silent room, their hearts still racing. They had done it. The truth was out. The police had the evidence. Dr. Westmore's dark deeds would finally come to light, and Eleanor could rest. As they left the basement for the final time, Nathan felt a calmness wash over him, knowing they had brought justice to a forgotten soul. The weight of the locket had disappeared, its warmth gone, but its presence lingered in their hearts. The school was never the same again. With the truth exposed, it was torn down, and a memorial was erected in honor of Eleanor and all those who had suffered in silence. The town moved on, but Nathan and Mia would never forget the girl who had led them on a journey into darkness and brought them back into the light. And as for Eleanor, well, sometimes, just sometimes, on quiet nights when the wind was still, Nathan swore he could hear her whispering a final, thankful sigh. The end.